Reinhold Niebuhr, who was a German theologian, penned a book titled Moral Man and Immoral Society. In the introduction of this text, he goes through a brief overview of two views on changing the world. One is a moralistic view, and the other is an enlightened rationalist view. Upon reading this, all we can conclude is that Niebuhr was indeed a realist. He was a person that wanted to look reality in the face. His conclusion is indeed cynical, because Niebuhr takes the position that inherent in the nature of man lies the problem. And Niebuhr may indeed be correct. He says that what is lacking among all these moralists, whether religious or rational, is an understanding of the brutal character of the behavior of all human collectives, and the power of self-interest and collective egoism in all intergroup relations. Failure to recognize the stubborn resistance of group egoism to all moral and inclusive social objectives inevitably involves them in unrealistic and confused political thought. They regard social conflict either as an impossible method of achieving morally approved ends or as a momentary expedient which a more perfect education or a purer religion will make necessary. They do not see that the limitations of the human imagination, the easy subservience of reason to prejudice and passion, and the consequent persistence of irrational egoism, particularly in group behavior, make social conflict an inevitability in human history, probably to its very end. We can hope that this is not the case, but really the point of Niebuhr is that predators take advantage of civility, that human nature disregards the moral dimension, that the way man is at his present state of time, the ego is dominant in such a way that it thwarts society. If this is true, this is certainly a tragedy. But more importantly, it will not do to look at something from a delusional vantage. The question, then, is what is the ontological reality of man? Is it true that society can be fixed with an emphasis of reason? Is it true that society can be fixed with an emphasis of morality? I think the real question is how we curb the ego. First of all, in ourselves, in our daily lives, the curbing of our ego is essential to the cultivation and success of a mature character. Without this, we will be floundering in adolescence. Without this, society will flounder in adolescence. It will be sabotaged by the individual. It will be sabotaged by the collective ego. The ego, in the sense which Niebuhr brings it up, is indeed relevant. It is a menace to the formation of society itself. If it is true that we cannot make the world better through enlightened rationalism alone, or through moralism alone, perhaps a combining of the two is essential, but what about this fixture of the ego? The solution then becomes the cultivation of character. The solution then becomes the smattering and smashing of the ego to make room for the cultivation of the ethical, the social realm. The ego, in its negative form, must be fought. The ego, in its positive form, must be embraced. But the negative form is against the formation of society. The positive form fights for the well-being of society. The difference between these two makes up the difference between the existence of society and the collapse of society. Whatever the case, we are indeed creatures of ego, and the ego is a destructive force.